with your wife for mental health at Children's Hospital. What does that mean to you and to Ohio State and you doing that for Ohio State?
Yeah, there's two different things that we've done. One is with On Our Sleeves for young folks, adolescents, and teenagers, and it's called On Our Sleeves, which is part of Nationwide Children's. It's just a tremendous program that Nina and I want to get a part of right away. We have a fund with that and support that in a lot of different ways. We do something called Daybreak Kits that are sent to almost 1 million classrooms throughout the country to give resources to administrators and folks there. But also, we're part of the Resilience Fund at Ohio State. And, they're doing unbelievable work there, and the research that they're doing to get out ahead of some of the risk factors towards mental health. So, and that's for, the college-age students and for adults. So, you kind of have the children down at Nationwide Children's and then the adults and college-age students with the university. So I think Columbus is on the cutting edge of all of that and leaders in that area. Yes, sir. Yeah, it's something that was really hard when it all happened. It all happened fast, and hard for his mom. But I think they felt like it was a blessing to be at Ohio State, to have the James right there, to be able to be in his dorm and go get his treatment. He's a private person, so it's not something that he wanted to kind of talk a lot about, but he had a whole team behind him, and he's fought it, but he had to have a procedure done that'll make it virtually impossible to play football. I won't get into all that right now, but he's still part of the program. He's still with the team, just like we have a couple guys like that. And, he's got a whole team that's going to be behind him. And, he's in remission, which is great. But, there's still a lot of things that come with that. And so we're very, very proud of him for fighting, for really living our culture of the fight. And, we're going to see him here in the fall, and he's still going to be a part of it and everything and the best he can. But, I know it's not easy for him that he won't play football again. That's something that's been a part of his life.
Right. Marvin said that he's been amazed to a certain extent how Carnell Tate has handled the situation, losing his mom to this.
Yeah.
All bonded with him, been around him, helped him support him. How tough a situation was that?
Yeah. I got the call at 6 a.m. about Ashley, and that was not easy for anybody, but certainly for Carnell. I know he and his mom were very close, and when you lose somebody close to you like that, it just takes the rug out from underneath you. And I know that happened to Carnell. He does have a team that's here to support him. We all kind of surrounded him and try to help him the best you can. He was a pretty private person as well, and I think part of the process when you're in that situation, we've had guys who have gone through similar situations, and you have to go through a process of grieving, and we've talked about that. And again, that's not easy, but I think football is allowed him a distraction to kind of get his mind off of it when he's not in his room or back in Chicago.
Carson Hinsman, Wisconsin,
Yep.
How has he developed and grown, but also do you foresee him potentially contributing them this season?
Oh, yeah. Carson is competing to be the starting center. He's had a very good offseason. He's very talented, has the athleticism, has the intelligence, does not have the experience, but he's a guy that, we've projected to have an opportunity to start this year. He's going to have to go earn the spot. He hasn't earned it yet, but there's a lot of things that lead us to believe he can do that, and we're going to need him to. We're going to need some guys to step up in the offensive line, and Carson has a bright future ahead of him.
Ryan, you guys brought in Lorenzo and Taiwan this summer. What has both of them brought to the program?
Lorenzo brings in. First off, he understands what it means to be a Buckeye because he grew up in Columbus. His brother's on the team. We recruited him as a corner to start with, and he wanted to try wide receiver at Notre Dame. He's since come back and said, probably should have listened to you guys at the beginning, but that's part of his journey, I told him. And he's come in, and really you can see how competitive he is. If you said, give me one word to describe Lorenzo, I would say that he's competitive. I mean, he's there every day. He's trying to win every drill, and that's been a big part of our offseason is the competing part of it. So he's really flourished in that area. He's got really good speed. He's learning to play a new position, but if you just look at the skill set and what, just moving around and learning the defense, it's been exciting to see somebody. Now he's played on, on offense, and so he has experience in games. That has to mean something. I think he'd be able to contribute on special teams early on, and then hopefully find a role as the season rolls on.
Did you envision the transfer portal giving you guys players kind of a second chance at schools like that? You've had a couple guys that you recruited, they've gone somewhere else, maybe played a hero position, come back, now another one there. Was that something you thought might happen with the transfer portal?
Yeah, we talk about that, and not that we ever did. When you lose a recruit, you always kind of stay in touch with them, but you just never know nowadays. So many guys go in the portal. You got to keep it in communication with them during the recruiting process, and so that when they do go to a school, if they decide to go back in the portal, there's still a really good relationship there, and they know. And so it's kind of strange to talk about, but yeah, you have to kind of let's say someone commits in the summer and they're going to go somewhere. You still want to kind of stay in touch with their family throughout the fall, stay in touch with their coach. Show them that respect, and maybe it pays off down the road. Yep. Yeah, I think we have, again, we talked about this before, more experience than we've had in a while there. So we have to get guys ready to play, but we've the bottom line is we got to play with aggressiveness. We got to play physical. We got to win games on defense, but we got to avoid the big plays. So. How does that all tie together? I think that's the critical part of it. But we're looking for physicality in preseason, to answer your question. We need guys who are playing downhill. We're playing fast. We got to win the line of scrimmage. The defensive line's got to play physical. In order to do that, I think JT, Jack, Mike, Tyleek, Ty, Kenyatta, they got to take on the majority of the reps. We've rotated guys in the past in the D line, but these guys have got to be guys that we can count on to play the majority of games, and like we say, carry the water. I mean, they're the ones that gotta do it up front, and it all starts with the guys up there. Well, one of the things we're most excited about is having a healthy Travion back. He really didn't get a chance to see a healthy Travion last year and a healthy Mayan, so that's exciting. Chip has had a great offseason. Dallin's had a good offseason. Evan, you have 5 guys in that room, and then we had Xavier Johnson as well, who played some running back for us down the stretch. So, like you said, you can't play all 6 at once, but we're going to try to find creative ways to get guys in the game and get them touches, and it's a long season, so we feel like we're going to need them all.
Ryan, do you feel like you guys are entering camp with Josh Fryer and Josh Simmons as your starting tackles, or is that still undecided?
I think it's still undecided. For Josh, he's just getting here, so we need to see what we got on the field. We don't know. We see a lot of talent, but Ohio State's different. This is a different offense. This is everything about it's different. So we need to see that, although we're encouraged with what we see. Tegra has done some good things in the offseason. And then Luke Montgomery, I've been very impressed with him. So I think we have some good candidates there, but now they got to go compete, and it's going to come down to what they look like in the preseason. So there's no more waiting around. They got to go.
What drew you guys to Josh Simmons when you were looking at it?
Well, we were looking at, when you lost Paris, in the third year, usually you don't lose too many offensive linemen after 3 years. Paris is a special case, and that left a hole there that we had to fill. And so, anytime we had tackles in the transfer portal, we looked long and hard at them, watched their film and tried to identify that, brought them in, tried to, do the best we could and find the best candidate for what we're looking for. And sometimes it's about the fit and who they are. But with Josh, we saw a lot of athleticism there and a huge upside.
How about Josh Fryer's development at left tackle throughout the course of the spring? How did you come out of those practices and how this summer played?
Yeah, I felt like Josh showed flashes, wore down a little bit, and so one of the challenges we had was for him to change his body and lose some weight. He's done that. I think he's like at 315 now, which is I think where Mick wants him, and so if he can sustain, then he can play with anybody in the country, and so that's why this summer was so important to him, and I think he's done that. I think he's put in the work, so that now he's time to go compete.
Ryan, when you mentioned Luke Montgomery, how realistic is it for any true freshman to be in a competition to maybe start and tackle the Big Ten?
He's in the competition right now. I told him the other day, I said, I know you're a true freshman, but you came here to play. So, that should be your mentality. Now, whether you play in the first game or not, I don't know. Maybe you don't play this year. But I just, I see things in him. We see things in him that are very encouraging. And I think everything you invest in, Luke, you're going to get back. He has all the traits that you look for in a really good offensive lineman. But, maybe it's game 3, maybe it's game 4, maybe it's, I don't know when it's going to be. But he's got a huge upside as well.
Ryan, when it comes to play calling duties, as you look back in the spring, how close do you feel like you are to making a decision on whether you're going to give that to Ryan?
Brian and I got to talk about that as we get into the first week or two of camp. We haven't really sat down and talked about it. Certainly would like for him the opportunity to make some play, do some play calling. How much, we got to figure that part of it out. But we'll get a feel for that as we get back into here in August. But that's, I think the big thing about being an offensive coordinator is it isn't always about the play calling. It is just the day-to-day organization of your staff, the corrections, the installs, the game plan. Like, there's so many things that come with being a coordinator, and one of the last things is play calling. Now, there is certain things that you learn over the time about play calling that you can learn from, but the organization and day-to-day stuff is way more important, and that's all great stuff that he's working through now.
The quarterback battle in that conversation matter at all in terms of the quarterback with the play calling situation, making sure there's one voice?
I think it's always good to have one voice, and I think that's why I've always wanted to be in the quarterback room. I think as Corey's grown, he's been able to do more and more, but it is always good to have the play caller and the quarterback on the same page. Absolutely.
Ryan, for you personally to think about kind of delegating some of the play calling stuff, and you've called plays for a lot of years, is that how weighty a decision is that for you? Is it a hard decision to make?
Yeah.
It's obviously something you've done for
Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think, Brian is the next logical progression for him is to be the coordinator and to, take the next step that way. But yeah, it's something I just, I've always been a part of and always done. And so, whether it's together or, however it works out, it's something that, I've always just, had a handle on, and you have experiences too. You'll learn every year about things, and so, it won't be easy for me to walk away from.
Ryan, what made you guys want to bring in
Taiwan was somebody that played baseball and football, and then did a little bit of that going into college. We felt like if he just focused on football, that he could play at a high level. Similar in the recruiting, we said the same thing. He was coming out of Bergen Catholic, and he played some last year. In the clips that we saw when he's down at Ole Miss playing, he did a nice job on film. So he enters the portal, and that was an opportunity for us to go grab somebody who we think could be in the program for multiple years, who can develop once he just focuses on football. Yeah, I do. It's been about just the competing part of it. I think that when I mentioned this earlier, if you and I are in a competition, let's say we're doing push-ups and I do 20 and you do, you're going to do okay, but you're going to try to do 21, right? And then I'm going to try to do 22, and we're going to go back and forth. And competition is how you continually get better. And it's one thing to work hard, it's another thing to compete. So much of what we've done has been around competing. And we've been competing in every single thing we can possibly do. And we're counting on that to make the difference in the end, so that, we can find those one or two plays, because, in those matchup games, it comes down to one or two of those plays, and those game-altering plays can be the difference between winning or losing games.
2 years ago.
I'd say it's more. It's pretty extreme. I mean, we overdid it and overemphasized it. I mean, we've always done competitions, as you know, but I'd say that it's pretty extreme.
Ryan, 2 years ago, we sat here and you said that in 5 years, you were afraid you wouldn't recognize college football. And thinking now that it's only been 2 years,
Right.
how much the game has changed. How do you feel about where things are heading for the sport?
Yeah, so I guess we're 3 years away from that moment. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot different now than it was 2 years ago. I mean, if you had sit here and said that this is what it's going to look like, probably somebody would tell you you're crazy. I think we need some help in certain areas for sure. I think we need help. Not every college football program across the country is the same. Whether it's Division III, Division II, FCS, FBS, different conferences, they all experience different things. They come from different perspectives. They're different sizes. They have different challenges. So I think we need flexibility throughout the country to be able to make rules that apply to, certain groups of football teams.
How much have you and Gene and the university been involved in the conversations with NIL as far as the legislation goes through Congress? I mean, is it just you guys, Michigan, Penn State, I mean, is it the whole conference? How involved have you been?
Yeah, Gene's always, very much involved with all of that. I know, the new commissioner's doing a great job of getting involved with all of that. And I think, like you said, some of the bigger universities are involved probably more than others, but I know at the Big Ten, we're involved with it.
Ryan, sometimes you're in the thick of the season and you're in the weeds. It's hard to have a big picture look. Coming off the summer, a little time to reflect. Michigan lost, you're right there with Georgia the whole time, state recruiting. Like, where is this program? How do you feel about this program right now?
Yeah, when you lose the last game of the regular season, it's devastating. It is, and then you regroup and you swing as hard as you can against Georgia, and come a play or two short. And if again one of those plays goes another way, we're sitting here having a different conversation. But it didn't. So you have to trust the process. But when you look at the team that we have, you look at the guys that we've recruited, you look at the experience we have coming back, the leadership, the coaching staff, our culture right now. The fact that we've been to the CFP 3 of the last 4 years, which I think we're the only team to do that in the last 4 years. You look at the way we're recruiting. You look at so many different things. Those boxes get checked, and so you have to trust the process. You have to believe in the process. You have to grow every year. You have to learn every year. I mean, I think our program's as healthy as it's ever been. In terms of the type of people we're bringing in, the talent we're bringing in, the coaching staff that we have. So we just got to keep growing and learning. One of the things that, every year you have to grow and get stronger and learn from the things that, you didn't do the year before. And that's, whether it's Jim Knowles, the second year as a coordinator, or me as the head coach, or, Justin Fry as the O-line coach, or Mark Pantoni in year whatever he is the, GM here at Ohio State. Everybody learns. Mick learns, our sports medicine learns, about maybe how, an injury was handled. They're just different things you learn every year and you grow. But I think when you take a step back and you just look at our program and how things are being run and who we have in the program and where it's projecting and the success we've had in a lot of different areas, we look at our GPAs as a team. When you look at so many different things in the leadership areas, I mean, there's just so many things that you can check those boxes. So it just motivates you even more to go win that last game of the year so that you can continue to build.
You guys win another thing out against Georgia, too, though, offensively. You think that will endure? You see that here? Not that y'all are over timid,
No, you're right. I think, yeah, and I think when you go back a little bit on that, the last game of the regular season, the rivalry game, we just didn't respond well in the second half when some of those big hits happened, and then we had that long penalty, the holding, and then the 15-yarder, which was almost like a 50-yard penalty. Like, we didn't respond great in the second half of that game, and I think coming into the Georgia game, we're like, no matter what happens, we're just going to swing, and we're not going to worry about what if or anything like that. And so I think you felt that aggressiveness from all of us, including me. When you put so much into that game, like so many people do, and the minute it goes a little bit off course, you have to just stick with it and you can't flinch. And so I think you felt that a little bit in the Georgia game. I felt that throughout the whole offseason, and now it's got to continue against Indiana this year. Yeah, and then build as the season goes on, because those games get bigger and bigger. Yeah, you try to identify the areas that are like the hot spots, the hot tickets, the things that are, causing the most problems for everybody across the country. The three areas that I've identified: one, the guns. There's just shootings constantly across the country. In Columbus, we just lost Carnell's mom. So it's just something that, I talk to our guys about all the time. The second one is gambling. You look at that right now is across the country. We just saw somebody else, I think, in the NFL, get suspended. That's a big deal. And then speeding, getting behind the wheel of a car and going too fast or getting themselves in accidents. So we could name a list of about 15 of them, but like it seems like those three right now are the ones that come up on your phone the most right now. And so you try to do the best you can to talk to the guys about that, to make sure that they're avoiding some of those things. Yeah, more now. Not that we've changed anything, but with the portal the way it is, you probably spend a little bit more time with your team. Not that you're recruiting your own players, you're not doing that, but you're communicating with them, you're talking to them, you're making sure that they understand where they stand within the program. With NIL, there's certainly a lot more people involved. With the program, you have the collectives, you have different things. Not that we're super involved with that, but there are fundraiser. I've done probably more fundraising this year than I've ever done. You've seen that probably. Just a lot more awareness of, getting the word out to normalize what NIL means for Ohio State. So there's a lot more of that this spring. Yeah, we could probably list about 4 different ways it could look. Collective bargaining, there's just so many different ways that you can look at it. I think the tricky thing is, there's really no benchmark for this. We can't why don't we do it like, this? It's hard to do when it comes to the compensation and everything with the players. You have to make them employees if you're going to do that, and that comes with a whole nother set of issues. So, I don't really know exactly how it's going to shake. I think eventually you're going to get into something where there is some sort of collective bargaining agreement, some sort of a players union, and that will somehow, get us down the road of at least having something in place that, we feel like we can grab onto. Because right now, there's not much to grab onto. Yeah, I was willing to auction off the first call of the Indiana game this year on the Buckeye Cruise for Cancer, but I decided against it. Figured that was going to be some sort of rules violation. No, we're trying to figure out all kinds of different ways. I think we've been creative about it. We're doing a lot of different things that I think are for the first time. Again, I think you've seen us not be maybe the first people to do things that are extreme or put ourselves out there, but do it in a first-class way, a classy way, do it the way that, Buckeye Nation can be proud of, that, we're doing it the right way to make sure we give our players what they deserve, but we're also not getting crazy and out in front of it. Trying to be thoughtful. I think we've made a lot of progress in the last year.
On the same subject.
Yeah.
Just in the aftermath of those games, it feels like after the Michigan game, there wasn't a lot of momentum, I guess, and then after the Georgia game, it felt like there was a lot of momentum despite it being a loss. Like, how do you compartmentalize it?
Yeah.
Yes, we got this momentum heading into the offseason. Oddly, it came in a loss.
I think everybody was trying to process all of that, and me one of them. There's just a range of emotions. You go from devastation to, coming to play away from being in the national championship and possibly winning it. It's like, what just happened? I just know that there's a group of guys that are coming back. I think having Tommy come back, having Cade come back, having Xavier come back, having Mayan come back. Those guys had to make some decisions. They decided to come back. it's allowed us to be a little bit more of a veteran team than we've had in the past. And so this off season, they've driven it. Our leaders, that's just a few of the guys. I mean, there's a lot of other guys that have done a great job leadership wise. They've driven the off season, and so I think you can just feel that coming from our players. I think you can just feel a confidence, and I think our guys are anxious to get back on the field and play. And I don't know how else to describe that because I can't really probably verbalize what you're talking about, but I hear what you're saying.
Ryan, you mentioned
I think we've recruited a really good batch. When you say freshman, Carnell Tate, I guess, is still a freshman, although all those guys who came at mid-year, I told them they're not a freshman anymore at their exit meetings coming out of the spring practice. So all those guys are now considered sophomores in my eyes. The guys who came in this summer, I got to give Lincoln credit. He's coming from South Dakota, doesn't have a huge background of playing quarterback, but he's jumped right in, hasn't been overwhelmed. He's athletic. He's got a long way to go, but he's got a bright future ahead of him. Arvell Reese is very, very talented. Now, he's got a lot to learn. And for a lot of the guys that came in this summer, they have a lot to learn. Calvin Simpson-Hunt is going to be he's got a really bright future ahead of him. I hate to sit here and tell them they're going to be great players because, they have to put all the work in to get there. But when you're looking at their ability level and, some of the guys that have come in, we're excited about all of them. It's hard to pick one out because, my phone's going to ring and someone's parents going to ask me why you didn't mention my son. But I think some of those guys are going to have a chance to get on the field, though, this year.
Ryan, the new TV deal, how's it going to affect the league, you think, and also how's it going to benefit your school team?
I think we can agree that, monetarily it's going to be huge, but also just exposure in recruiting. The West Coast markets is, we recruit a lot on the West Coast. We recruit nationally, so certainly the monetary part is going to be great, but also the exposure in recruiting.
Ryan, you've answered, it's probably a big enough question about the quarterbacks. Going into camp, what's one thing you need to see from Pro, one thing you need to see from the other to give them a chance to start?
Yeah, I think it's the competition. It's when the play needs to be made, does it get made? It's one thing to throw, a completion in 7-on-7 on a Tuesday, second period of the, whatever. It's another thing on 3rd and 4 during a scrimmage to make that throw or make that red zone throw and catch on 3rd and 2. You don't get to see them play with their legs in practice because they're not live. We're not going to do that. So you don't know that till the game. But those plays, those game where for the quarterback, 3rd down, red zone, a play action shot, you can't miss that shot. I mean, that's those plays have to be made because we've worked really hard to set up that one play. If that play isn't made, then we're not going to score touchdowns here. So I can't give you like one thing, but I just those really important plays that have to be made, and those are the ones that separate you from scoring touchdowns and being as good as we've been on offense and just being average.
You said it was very close earlier. Is it 50-50 close? Is it 49? Or is it, in your mind, is there
Yeah.
somebody, not that it's close, but is there somebody that at least has an edge?
I think the only thing that Kyle has an edge right now, just in terms of all of it, is just that he's been here for another year, so he's got more and more reps under his belt. But I don't have it as a percentage right now. I'm interested to see what these first couple weeks look like. Devin didn't get a chance to play in the spring game, so I would have really liked to see him play in that, just in front of the stadium and all that. That was disappointing for him, for all of us. So no real evaluation on that. But they both done a great job. Their bodies are changed. I think if you see them, you'll be like, wow, literally you can physically see the change. So we'll see. I don't have a percentage right now.
Will they each get kind of like first team reps, like kind of the way that they were in spring
Yeah.
and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Coach, you mentioned
Yeah.
must have some awareness that defenses are going to start to do everything to stop them.
Yeah.
So you've got to get our players. Well, what's the balance of that of acknowledging, hey, that's how they're going to deal with him. We've got to get the ball to other guys versus we have to do whatever we can
Yeah.
to get him open and make sure he's involved.
Yeah, we talked about it yesterday as a staff. We can't, at the end of the game, look down at the stat sheet here and say, well, Marvin touched it once or twice. Like, that's not acceptable. We have to figure out ways to get him the ball. But at the same time, like you said, if Marvin's if we're in 3-by-1 to the boundary, they got to double team them. Like, I mean, there's not a lot of people that can cover him. It's just there are probably not some people in the NFL maybe that can cover him. He's that talented of a player. We're very fortunate to have him. So what does that mean? Well, there's going to be times where he's going to dictate coverage, and there's also other times Emeka's going to dictate coverage. I mean, he's had one of the more productive years last year than anybody in Ohio State history. Like, this is a really good player, and same thing with Travion at tailback. So, it's going to be interesting to see how teams play us. But there's going to be times where, the quarterback's going to have to find the one-on-one, and that's part of it. But we also need to do a great job in the offensive staff of finding ways to get touches to our playmakers.
Coach, you mentioned prepping and talking about conditioning every day in practice, but what's the line for a coach to do those things? And like you said, not letting these twice. And even though it's 365 days a year, you do have 11 other days before that.
Yeah. No, it's a great question. It's something we talk about a lot, but we're not going to change what we do and how we prepare. There's some things we talked about that we need to get done in that game. I'm not going to get into all those things now, but we have to. And so we looked long and hard at the whole game and figured out the areas that we've got to do a better job specifically. But just the emphasis every day needs to be there.
Under the new Big Ten scheduling model, you guys are going to play Penn State every year like you have in the past. How do you feel about that moving forward and not having a game sort of as an annual game?
Yeah, they're a very good team, and it's going to be another challenge. We got them at home this year, but they got a great team coming back, and every year it's a battle, just is. And we've built up some great games over the years, so we love playing them. We love playing them because they're a great team. We don't love playing them because it's hard. But at the same time, I think the win that we had there this year, probably that and the Notre Dame game allowed us the opportunity to play in the playoffs. So I think that's a part of it as well. You have to get some of those games under your belt, but they do a great job, and it's always a game that comes down to the last drive of the game.
Brian, I know you guys take a lot of pride in the culture you built at Ohio State. So this isn't necessarily an Ohio State specific question, but when something happens like it did as a head coach in college football, do you look at your culture and say, what can I change, or how much more do I have to focus on this program?
Yeah, I'm sure you know the question. You know the answer to that. Yeah, immediately all of a sudden you got to look hard and make sure that there's nothing going on with your crowd, and so immediately have a staff meeting and talk about how if there's something that's going on, I need to know about. It needs to be told to me, and so you go back through that again. Not that we don't talk about those things. We do, but it's something that brings it to the forefront. Talk to the team about how it's unacceptable and all the things that come with it, and so you just try to make sure you have everything in place so that something like that doesn't happen. Especially when it's something that just happened recently.
Brian, coming out of the Providence spring practice, you've seen that same thing in the summer, and what do you expect?
Yeah, I think he's 250 something right now, 255. He looks great. We need Kenyatta to play for us this year and have production, but he looks like an NFL player right now.
Ryan, what do you think of the Big Ten's new scheduling format going forward in addition to the Ohio State's play?
Yeah, I think because the Big Ten has such a long tradition and there's so many historic games and rivalries for some teams, and then others maybe not as much. It was a challenge, I think, to put this together and not have the East and the West anymore. You're tying in UCLA, you're tying in USC. Just a lot of things at play here. So I think they did the best they could and tried to put that all together. I know that one of the goals was to try to get as many teams as possible in the playoffs. So, when you're looking at that, you want to have certain teams that you play on a yearly basis, but at the same time, you also want to try to do the best you can to get as many guys into the playoffs. And, people see it from different points of view. I'm glad we still have the rivalry game. I do think we should consider, when we play it, just because you may end up playing them back-to-back weeks, which would be awkward. I know that, we need to consider the tradition, but I think it's worth a conversation on when, because I think that's significant just on how the season plays out. But other than that, I think they did the best they could with it. I think the good news is they didn't build a schedule that is locked in for a long period of time. I think that they can, do this for a couple years, reevaluate, and then have the flexibility to change it up if needed.
So are you good with not playing Penn State every year going forward?
It doesn't really matter at this point. The decision's been made. I think, we like playing Penn State. They're a great team, and it's one of those games where you find out where you're at year in and year out. And do I like playing them? I mean, not really, but because they're a very good team. But at the same time, I think the rivalry's been excellent. I think it's good for college football to see Penn State and Ohio State play.
Right off the curb, what's your personal preference for playing Michigan since they're not playing them
Yeah, I just think that the tradition's so strong and it's been going on for so long. I think, it's something that, has to happen for Ohio State. And, and I think, we got to play the game every year. Oh yeah, where it is, I think we should. I think it's worth a long discussion about where that game should be placed. I think if it was the same way as it was this past year, we'd be playing back-to-back games, and then who knows, maybe even playing again in the playoffs. So I just think that needs to be taken into consideration. Not that we shouldn't move it, but I think it's worth talking about.
Ryan, just real quick on that idea.
Yeah.
That's a big deal if that would happen, right? What would be or are the difficulties of playing a team like that back to back? Like what you're saying that could be, if that happened, what would be the negative about that?
Yeah, well, it's the game could not, have an impact on, a whole bunch in terms of if both teams are in the Big Ten playoff or Big Ten championship game already, then, could it minimize the game? That's my concern. Even if you played it, week 11, week 10, no matter what, it's going to matter. But if you're playing them in the Big Ten championship game already, it could be something that we haven't experienced before. That's all. So I think it's worth a discussion.
So what's your any discussion to your knowledge yet about any of that? Or you're just
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know that they're talking about it. I just don't think that any hard decisions have been made. I don't think they're going to be made here real soon. So I just want to be part of those conversations.
Theoretically, you can play them 3 times in a row, with the 12 team.
Yeah.
I mean, that would diminish the original one, wouldn't it? I mean,
Well, I think as we're talking it through, you're ultimately going to want to get into the final. We're getting way ahead of ourselves right now, but you want to be in the final 4. You want to be in the top 4, so you have a bye in that first week. So it would matter, but just not the way that you and I know the game, and so. But it's going to be a new experience, But let's just talk about this upcoming year. We got a long way to go before we get there.
Right. You feel like there's like a sitter right now. Are you more concerned about your starting right tackle than you are your starting quarterback? Can you rank them in those ways? Is that fair?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. That's a good question. I don't know if I have the answer to that. I mean, yeah, I'm concerned about both just because you don't know. And that's when you go into a conference first game on the road, your biggest concern are the unknowns, and the unknowns are those guys haven't played. So, yeah, I mean, they're both concerning. And again, only just because they haven't played, I mean, they might be the best players on the team. I don't know. But, yeah, you worry about those type of things. Yeah.
All the changes coming to college football in 2024, do you feel like there's a little bit of a cloud over the season, just in college football in general? Like, you're going to go about your day-to-day business. You're going to play 12 games, maybe play for a national championship. But there is a little bit of a cloud hanging over the season.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I just think that, whatever the rules are, and then, they're gonna crown a champion, and we got the rivalry game, we got the Big Ten championship, we got the national championship, so it's all right there. It's just a matter of, the format, and so the format is what it is this year, and we're just gonna go after it.
Ryan, how would you feel about opening the season against Michigan?
Ooh, you guys are throwing some stuff at me right now. I'm just gonna worry about beating Indiana right now, but that'd be crazy.
Where do they rank as in terms of the best duos you've had at Ohio State?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can say there's anybody better. Now they have to produce for another year because they only have really 1 year of production. But if you look at what they did last year as sophomores, And certainly they had CJ, and CJ was great. But man, for two sophomores, I mean, that was as good of a. But they got to do it again, And I think that's part of what you're asking. Guys who do it for multiple years in a row, not just for a year. I mean, Jackson was one of the most talented receivers we had, but he was hurt last year, so the production wasn't there. Where Garrett and Chris, those guys, did it for multiple years. So if they can put another year together this year, they might be one of the better ones in the history of Ohio State, if not the best.
Talking about that first game of the season, what are your thoughts about that first game with Indiana? You say you guys are growing every single day. Where do you expect your team to be right at that first game of the season?
Put the ball into the right spot on time, not to do anything extraordinary early on, but just find a way to compete and win games, and a team that's going to play tough and compete at a high level, play with an edge, play fast. That's what we're looking for in that first game, and then winning the first game on the road, because we're going to have to go on the road a bunch this season, and that's good. Go on the road and see where we're at. So those are all things we'll be looking for.
Coach, you talked about I hate to ask another question about the whole team playoff, but with Big Ten having 16, and with many people have said the goal to get as many as you can in the playoff, does that start to feel like the NFL a little bit in terms of 16 teams, almost like the AFC with that playoff race and how that's going to be?
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad way to look at it, since they've been doing it for a long time and have a lot of experience. So yeah, I think you can make an argument for a lot of different things where you put pods together and you have divisions, and the divisions go on and all that stuff. I mean, we could talk about this for hours about different things, but yeah, I mean, that part of it, I think that there is ways to compare to the NFL and how they've done things in the past, because they have such a great experience. I think when you're talking about paying players and NIL, I think it's hard to compare to the NFL because it's just a whole different model. But I think when you're trying to put together a playoff system, it makes sense because they have such experience in this area.
Ryan, do you have a time frame set for the offensive line to be fully set, and are you open to moving pieces around as stuff?
Yeah, I can see us moving some pieces around as time goes on. You don't want to. You'd like to have 5 that you feel great about, but I just think there's enough talent and enough competition in that room that you're going to see us try to give guys opportunities in game to grade out as champions and earn starter status.
Ryan, what made you decide to hire Joe Philbin, and what is
I never thought we'd have an opportunity to hire him. Brian brought it up because he coached Brian in Miami, and spoke with Joe for a little while, and the conversation went on and on. It took a couple months probably for it all to play out. He had a lot of opportunities. O-line coach of the Dallas Cowboys, coordinator for the Super Bowl team, head coach for the Dolphins. A perfect hire, and that's in an analyst role. He's been unbelievable. He's got a tremendous amount of experience. He's got a great personality just in terms of how he handles helping some of the younger coaches, helping some of the other players, just being around the program. And he's been great for me, just somebody who's been through as a head coach what it's like, the point of view. I'm really, really fortunate to have Joe part of the program this year.
How much can an analyst impact a team? We don't see that
Yeah.
much.
We've done some with the analyst where some of them have just been younger guys who have done a lot of the QC work. This is a little bit different. We've Todd Fitch is on staff now. Joe Philbin. We brought in Mike Dawson, somebody that I worked with. When he was in the NFL, and so. Rob Keys, somebody who was the head coach at Finley. These are some guys who have a little bit more experience, who have been around different roles. They can have an impact on the other coaches because sometimes they can coach the coaches. They can kind of help those guys up. They can help with game planning. They can bring perspective that maybe a younger coach can't because they've seen things before. And so I think that balance of having experience and then youth is a really good balance to have. I think the youth, the younger guys with the energy and the connection to the players is great. Then you have the guys who have been through a lot of worse and they've seen a lot of things. And so I that's something that I've tried to do in the last couple of years is strike that balance. And, I'd say this staff is probably the closest that we've done to hitting that.
2 more questions, folks.
Who is?
Was everybody who was out this spring injury-wise ready for football camp? Do you have anything that's lingering injury-wise going in?
Reese Stocksdale is the only one that has a long term. Yeah, so he had the ACL, so he'll be out until like bowl practice. You guys know the update on Zach Herbstreit. He'll be out indefinitely right now. Still be on the team. still going to report to camp and be a part of it, but he won't be able to get on the field. Until we get some sort of an update on his condition. Yeah. Yep. But everybody else is full go.
Hey Ryan, your conversation.
Evan Pryor, full go. Yeah.
Your conversation with Tony Coutinho, how much is he asking you guys what the league needs to do to best position you and the other teams in this league to compete for a national championship? He's been the only team that's played for one or won one in the CFP or BCS.
Yeah, he's been great so far to work with. It seems like what he says he's going to do, and looking forward to having more of those conversations. There's a lot coming at him right now, and he's trying to figure it out. But he's already got a couple things done, and his long-term goals all look in line with what we need as a conference. But no, his communication's been good. I think, just one of the biggest challenges we have right now in the, recruiting, whether it's the portal or in high school, is this inducement, and it's real, it's out there right now, and I think that's probably the area that if you said, give me the number one thing that we got to get straightened out in NIL, it's that, and it's because it's so gray and it's hard to enforce. It's out there, and so. To me, if you had to say the number one area that we got to identify and get nailed down and try to, put some guardrails around, it'd be that area right there. Yeah. Good. Yeah. So he's a medical. Yeah. Yep. All right, guys. Yep. Yep. No problem.